Welcome to Front Office Pros. Today, we're going to be talking about how to trade when contract and salaries are involved in your fantasy football leagues.
Hike!
In some recent episodes, we talked about a salary cap dynasty league and what that entails. Well, we're going to be talking about today what it looks like to trade these players. We're going to talk about a few scenarios that will be a little bit different if you haven't experienced one of these leagues before. Let's talk about the first one, which honestly might be the most intuitive because you hear about this all the time when it comes to the NFL and media circles, and that's players on rookie contracts. So in a dynasty league, rookies are already the craze. Anybody, people will always prioritize youth. So if you have somebody younger, you're going to want to hold on to them. They have exponential value because you're going to have them forever. But what's nice about a rookie contract is they're on the rookie wage scale. They're going to be a lot cheaper. So, think about players like a Bijan Robinson, a Jahmyr Gibbs, even a Jamar Chase, right? He's even a perfect example. Guy on his rookie contract for so long and was performing as a top, wide receiver one. These guys are running back ones, but you're paying them at a lower amount. And that's what you see even in quarterbacks, right? Where you talk about, hey, take advantage of a quarterback still on a rookie deal because you have so much more at your disposal as far as your salary cap goes in being able to get all these other players on you to help win a championship. Once you have to pay for that quarterback in the NFL, now you're in a tough situation. So depending on your scoring, it may not be the quarterback, but it's maybe the Jamar Chases of the world who, ends up getting an extension. He ends up, his contract expiring. Now you have to pay him the big bucks for Justin Jefferson. So how do you handle, Joe? I would say, in my opinion, rookies are even more valuable because of those rookie contracts.
Yeah, 100%. They are valuable. And, if you want to try to acquire a guy on a rookie contract, maybe there's a team out there who thinking that they're not going to re-sign him if they're coming up on, the end of their rookie deals. So you might want to acquire him. At that point, you could get him pretty cheap. But if there's a guy, if you're looking at a rookie who's still got like a couple of years left and you want a guy, like you're going to have to pay a pretty penny to go ahead and get him.
Yeah, it's not going to be cheap to be able to get these guys. You're going to have to pay even more than, would you say it's more than a traditional dynasty league?
Maybe not more because I'm sure like stud rookies are highly coveted no matter what, but I think they're even more so in the salary cap and contract space because like you said, it's just a controlled asset for 4 years on the rookie deal. Maybe you pick up their 5th-year option, maybe you don't, but at least you got that guy for 4 years on a really good deal. So it could be a little bit more than a traditional dynasty perspective just because of the contract element.
Yeah, and those 5th-year options come into play for those first-round rookies. But especially if you draft, I think if you have a guy like Puka Nacua, right? You drafted him,
right?
Or was undrafted, so you have him on a 4-year contract, and he's dirt cheap. He's way more valuable because would I rather have Puka Nacua at, let's say, $1.5 million compared to Justin Jefferson at $35-40 million. Right. They're producing around the same amount, so you think I would much rather have Puka at that price than I would Justin Jefferson.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are you enjoying this episode so far? Well, if you are, subscribe to our YouTube channel, smash that like button, and hit the notification bell for upcoming videos. We do videos throughout the year, so you're not going to want to miss what we have in store. And that kind of goes into our next intricacy here is how about veterans who have a big contract? So we just talked about a guy like Justin Jefferson. Maybe he has a 4-year deal in your league. He's getting $30-35 million a year. Think about guys like Christian McCaffrey, who have been top players for a long time. And then all of a sudden, hey, he was out for the year or most of the year, barely played any. And all of a sudden, let's say you had him on a huge contract. Now it's like, what once this one guy was a top running back, and he's kind of fallen down the ladder a little bit because of his injury. But even more so, if I have him on a huge contract, you're talking about an albatross around your neck. And it's like, what do you do? So you see a lot more trades sometimes, and that's where maybe it makes a little bit more sense. You see in the NFL, it's like, well, I remember back in the day, this is going back a little bit, but it's like Anquan Boldin gets traded to the Baltimore Ravens for like a 5th-round pick. It's like, wait, what? Like, it's Anquan Boldin. How is he only going for a 5th-round pick? Or DeAndre Hopkins, most recently, I think he went for like a 5th-round pick, going to the Titans, the Chiefs. Like, wait, it's DeAndre Hopkins. How are these trades happening? What's happening is these teams, it's a huge salary that they have to swallow up. Sure, there's some dead cap the other team is taking on, but when you're taking on a huge contract like that, you got to think twice about giving a lot of assets away to get this player.
Yeah, you definitely do. And, your Christian McCaffrey example, hit home because I had him on a really big contract, but then was able to trade him. But, I had to eat some dead cap. But then, it turned out to be an okay deal for the other owner because then it's all just, base money, no more guaranteed dollars for him if they want to move around that contract. So it was a little more feasible. And then I just, had to eat some dead cap on that.
So, I think at the end of the day, that's something that you've got to change your mindset on because you've got, there are veterans who are being paid, especially as they get older in their career. I'm thinking guys like Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams, if they have a longer contract, and even too, like you got to think about, and this isn't necessarily in trading, it's kind of similar. Well, I guess to a degree, what if depending on how retirements are in your league and how that happens, if you've got a guy, let's say you've got Tyreek Hill out there and he's got a 3-year contract at $25 million a year. Do we think he's going to make it the next 3 years? And will he stay at that speed? And if he doesn't, what are the implications in your league? That's something that you got to know. Did that just all of a sudden goes away? Do you have to pay a 50% dead cap cost? That adds to it. So when you see these veterans with longer contracts, and you're thinking to myself, do I really want to have this huge contract? I think about a guy like Keenan Allen, even for the LA Chargers this past year, who went to the Chicago Bears. He had a huge contract. Chargers like, we're not going to pay this. And he went right over to Chicago. Now he'll be a free agent. So, so definitely some things you have to consider when trading with a veteran who has a hefty price.
Yeah, 100%. And like you said, if you're trying to trade one, most likely not going to get the return that you probably would want, especially if they do have a hefty asking price.
Yeah, you should expect, I believe, in this type of format, you're going to expect a lower return than in a normal dynasty league. In a normal dynasty league, if it's around the trade deadline, you got buyers and sellers. You want some cherries on top to try to get you in. You might give up a second or whatever, maybe even a first. Not for Keenan Allen, but I'm just saying, you trade those picks to be able to get yourself into that conversation, in that playoff hunt, or really deep in the playoff run.
Right.
But in this format, it's like, okay, I'm going to do that, but do I really want to also have this contract assigned to him for however many years? So you're going to get a less of a return in this format. But you also will be inclined to. So as that team, if I'm like someone like you, right, who you were kind of a bottom feeder, you think about a guy like Christian McCaffrey. You had no business having the guy. He wasn't going to do you anything. So you were more inclined to be like, you know what, let me just get something for him. And so I think you end up seeing more trades happen. The rookies, whether you're in a dynasty league or in a dynasty salary cap league, I don't think it's going to much differ. It's going to be hard to get players on rookie contracts. But for veteran contracts, you might be willing to say, you know what, just forget the talent. Just from a salary cap perspective, for me to get this guy off the books, I'll take a 3rd or 4th round pick just to get it off my books for me. So then I can kind of move on and have salary cap heading up into the free agency.
Yeah, 100%. And I've had plenty of other players on my team that I'm just like, out of the playoff hunt. And I'm like, what good is these guys going to be doing for me the rest of the way? Let me try to get them to a playoff team and, just get a 3rd or 4th round pick. And, I'll be happy. And at least they're, like you said, they're off my books and I got something for them.
So the last variation we're going to be talking about here, and this is probably the most interesting one, and I think kind of drives the most demand as far as trades goes. And that's players with 1-year contracts. And this is the player movement side of what you see in dynasty salary cap leagues. With those dynasty leagues, you can keep players indefinitely. You don't have to move them at all. But in a dynasty salary cap league, you got 1 year left on your deal, and maybe your league doesn't allow you to re-sign, or if you were, it was going to be too expensive. And based on your salary cap, I can't afford this guy. You got to make a decision. And you'd be better off trading this guy and getting something for him than getting squat diddly. So that, I think all the time during the deadline, teams are evaluating their rosters and saying like, oh, I may cut this guy next year, or if he's maybe even a 2-year deal, and the second year I'm going to cut him, or hey, he's on a 1-year deal. I got to trade this guy. So I think those are prime targets. I find out, I do think, and from a tactical standpoint, I do think it can be hard. And I think our league is caught on to this. Is I'll look at a lot of my 1 year players I know I'm not going to sign, and I'll reach out and be like, hey, you interested? And a lot of times I'll get a message back being like, they're only on a one deal. I'm not that interested. Unless they're that compelling of a player, they almost view the 1 year deals as kind of like throw-ins. Because basically, if they don't do me anything, then, bye-bye. I don't see it the same way. I think that different building blocks can help make, kind of change the makeup of your team and allow you to kind of go to the next level. But I do think that's something you have to contend with.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, pretty much like if you're not one of the contending teams, I found if I got players on, 1 year deals, like you mentioned, a lot of times, they're flat out just telling me no, or just like trying to lowball me in the terms of the pick range because I know they're on a 1 year deal. But then our league's a little bit different. We have comp picks too. So it's like, if you're not going to give me at least a third or a fourth, I'm just going to hang on to this guy, let him walk to free agency. And if I'm not going to be that active in free agency, I'm going to get a comp pick in return. And that's going to be a third or fourth round pick. So that's when if somebody was trying to lowball me for like a fifth with a guy on a 1 year deal, and I know like they could be an interesting asset in free agency, I'm not going to pull the trigger on that.
Oh, absolutely. And that's where those compensatory picks come in. And you see in the NFL, if you lost a certain amount of players more than you gained, you have the ability to get a compensatory pick, whether it be a third round, a fourth round, fifth round, sixth round, seventh round, depending on how many rounds. We do 7 rounds, similar to the NFL process. But you're right. If I'm like, why am I going to if I know I can get a third or fourth, if you're not giving me any better of a deal, then I'll just hold on to them. We don't know what happens to that player. Maybe they go to an intriguing spot in real life, and maybe it's like, I want to keep this guy. So, you're not in ours specifically, you're not as motivated. But I think those 1 year deals, honestly, in all of these though, what's interesting about it is that it does get conversation talk moving, I think, as far as trades goes.
Yeah, it definitely helps. And like I said, the teams that are competing for championships, those are the type of pieces that they're trying to add, because typically in the last year of their deal, especially by the trade deadline, a lot of the contract's cheaper than it is to start the season at that point in the season as well. So there's a lot of different favorable things for them. And if they're fine with it, maybe there's a guy that they potentially might want to re-sign after the season, or they just write him out, and they might even be able to, essentially buy a comp pick by acquiring this guy and letting him hit free agency too.
You saw that even with I think the Ravens now, that they claim Deontay Johnson, because then when he goes somewhere, they might be able to get him in the comp formula.
Well, that's why I was surprised they waived him in the first place, because I thought, despite the issues, they're going to keep him around so that they could, let him hit free agency and then, be the comp pick. But they were able to, Texans didn't want to take advantage of that. So they're like, all right, let's get Adam back there.
At the end of the day, we hope that in this episode you've got to see a little bit an inside view, if you will, of a dynasty salary cap league and these different intricacies. There's all these different various contract situations and scenarios that lend themselves to more trades, and we can't recommend it enough. I mean, Joe, I want to say we've been in our league for 6 years. We've had over like something crazy, like 250 plus trades or something like that. I mean, we have had
we got to have more than that. We got to be closer to 300 at this point.
Over 300. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're talking over 6 year span. And I've been in some traditional dynasty leagues, and even that sometimes is a crawl to get people to do trades. So this because you have that salary cap, it causes those trades to happen. And who doesn't like trading? Even for someone like you, Joe, who in a traditional redraft league, you are stone cold. You don't trade anybody. But in this format, you're wheeling and dealing left and right. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, you really do. I mean, you're forced to. Yeah, you're right. I mean, I think redraft, it's just like I have a hard time trading, because it's like I feel like I've drafted a good team and I'm very active in free agency, so it's hard for me to trade those assets. But when it comes to this league and the salary cap, it really does force the player movement. There's moves to be made. I'm looking to continually improve my roster, similar to what a normal NFL GM is. So it really just gives you that experience. And like I said, you're just always looking to see how you can improve your roster and I'm always looking to compete, so that's also why I'm a pretty active trader. I don't want to be just like riding the middle. I either want to be in the rebuild mode or just competing for championships.
Yeah, which lends yourself to making either moves on one side or the
Right,
other.
that's what I mean. Yeah, so myself, I tend to make a lot of moves, but like you said, it's also a lot of fun dealing with the league mates.
Yeah, so ultimately, whether it's a rookie contract, whether it's a veteran that has a hefty price tag associated with him, or it's a guy on a 1-year deal, and other scenarios, you're going to see in this type of league format that it's going to be it's going to be a lot easier to make trades across your landscape of your league because every team's looking at their salary cap and wondering how am I going to budget my team and who do I need to keep, who's my cornerstone players, who do I gotta, say, hey, I gotta get rid of these guys and get something for them. It's a constant looking at your roster, and it makes it a lot of fun.
Yeah, it really does.
So that does it for this episode. Hopefully you found it valuable as we've been talking about, hey, why don't you start up a Dynasty Salary Cap League? If you have any thoughts surrounding it, or hey, I'd be interested, but I have no idea where to start, go ahead and reach out to us. We'd be happy to help you. Thank you so much for tuning in, and until next time.